I'm recording to both OBS and this just in case like one recording fucks up, but huh?
I just showed the world that it's vegan because people tried to
Mm,
screenshot me drinking and eating non-vegan food. So there you go.
okay. Okay, so I'm joined here once again with the militant vegan Rafaela, and we're going to have a debate slash discussion on hate speech, what constitutes hate speech, and whether or not hate speech should be protected under free speech. Because in your home country, hate speech laws are a little weird, a little funky, and they might be a bit overreaching. I'm not sure if we are in total agreement on whether or not hate speech should be protected by free speech. But first of all, I think we should cover what hate speech actually is. From conservative pundits online, particularly from the US, you typically get gaslit into thinking hate speech is just offensive speech. Hate speech isn't merely offensive speech. As it's defined in Canada under Canadian law, and I'd agree with the definition under Canadian law, hate speech is speech that incites hatred towards groups of people. So it could be black people, it could be Jewish people, it could be Asians. But it's speech that would be likely to lead to violence or a disturbance of the peace. So it's not merely just speech that's offensive. I could say something that offends you, like fuck your mother. That's not hate speech. Hate speech is something like, Asians, they actually like kill their mothers, and they might actually invade us and kill your mothers too, and they're evil, and they have a secret cabal that's trying to ruin the entire world and steal all your money, and they're going to eat your babies and enslave you. Like, it's kind of a ridiculous example, but if people were to actually genuinely be convinced to believe those things, that would reasonably be expected to lead to violence and disruption of the peace. We might look back on history now and think a lot of the things that Hitler said about Jews was ridiculous, but Hitler was able to convince people of the time that all the nasty propaganda he made up about Jews was true, and that led to the Holocaust.
Yeah, so the second part sounds more to me like kind of something that I would call defamation of marginalized groups, or even lying about them, like blatantly saying, like you just proposed in the example, Chinese people or something, fuck their mothers and they could be a threat and they do yada, yada, yada. That's pretty much lying. I understand that you differed between hate speech and offensive speech. And in Germany, I would like to start with the German laws and why I'm in critique of them. There's offensive speech that is illegal. So I can't go up to someone, like not even a police officer, and call them a cunt. They can sue me for that. If I'm talking to someone of higher standing, like a police person or a politician even, or it's like in a public way, and we're both public people. And I call someone even an idiot or stupid, like even calling someone stupid, can result into me getting sued, me getting fined, me having a
So,
huge court case.
just to be clear, is that codified under hate speech laws, or is that codified under a different section?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't know the exact laws about that. I don't.
Okay.
I haven't read up on the laws. I'm
Because
sorry.
I know in the UK there is a definition of hate speech, but there's also public indecency laws that aren't technically under the hate speech code. So that's what I'm guessing it is, because I don't understand. There's no way you could going up to somebody and calling them stupid would be codified under hate speech. There's probably
No.
some sort of
Yeah.
public decency law.
So I think if I stand up on a podium on a public demonstration and I go and say all black people are stupid, that would be called hate speech. If I go up to a single black person or non-black person and I call that stupid, called them stupid or cunt or whatever, then that would be offensive speech. It would be, yeah, I have to look up the word in English. It would be simply like calling someone a name calling, and that is illegal. And I think it's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
And everyone's always tone policing in German debates, and I sometimes get very loud, but I don't usually call people like you're an asshole. I would like to sometimes, but sometimes it really restricts the way that I lead my debates because people are so fucking offended. And even just saying something like, oh my God, that's so stupid, or you're so stupid about that, or you're dumb like a brick of wood. We say in Germany, dumm wie Holz. They say, I can sue you for that. I can sue you for that. Like, what the fuck? And if you're talking to someone who's very bad faith, I constantly have the fear of having to pinprick my words or they scream, I'm gonna get my lawyer for that. It's just if I call someone behindert, that's like they're cognitively impaired. It's not politically beautiful or politically correct, some might say, but it's actually fucking. They can sue you for that, and I think that shouldn't offensive language shouldn't be illegal. I
Yeah,
don't know, but
absolutely.
it infringes on my free speech. And I don't know where hate speech starts. I think hate speech starts for me personally, and I wouldn't like to have this as a legal debate. First of all, I would have like to have this as a moral debate.
Sure.
I think hate speech is wrong, especially when you're doing something that you mentioned before, when you're like blatantly telling lies just to invade a country, just to get all black people killed, and just invade lies, provoke lies about them, or spread defamation. That's just fucking
So, by
wrong.
the way,
That should be illegal.
on the lying topic, it's actually again codified in Canadian law that it would not constitute hate speech if you can prove it's true.
Oh yeah, yeah. That. I mean, if you're just telling the truth should never be illegal.
Yeah.
That's why comparisons shouldn't be illegal. Like logical comparisons, like I said in our last talk, making a comparison of the food industry, like the animal slavery and the concentration camps the animals are being put in, and the concentration camps that, for example, marginalized groups during the Second World War were put in. If somebody's very bad faith, they say, I feel so offended. Someone in my family is a Jew, and I'm going to sue you for that. And they might actually, depending on the day and depending on the jurisdiction and the guy who, like the court room, they might actually give you a fine for that. Like I said, I have ongoing court cases for making logical comparisons because offensive language constitutes making logical comparisons. And that just, to me, is fucking ridiculous. Yeah. But telling the truth should never be illegal, in my point. And what do you think about when we're on hate speech? I think we have to talk about free speech in general. I think we're both in agreement that me calling you a cunt shouldn't be illegal.
Yeah.
And me saying that you hit your wife when you hit your wife, and I have proof for that, shouldn't be illegal.
Yeah.
And if your whole family hits wives, then I should also be able to tell that as long as I can prove it, because that's not hate speech, even though it goes against your whole family or whatever. But the moment that catcalling, I had an unpopular opinion on catcalling. I think it's very subjective when it becomes offensive, and I'm already very open when it comes to hate speech, because I don't think that offensive language should be illegal anyways. And what people want to stop about catcalling is that it's offensive, that it is derogatory, that those slurs might even be frightening. Hello, cat. I don't. I think France now prohibited catcalling. What's your opinion on that?
It's probably stupid. I know the culture in Europe, especially France, is a little weird. The way women are allowed to be treated in Europe, in France, from my understanding, is quite different. So I'd have to know a little bit more about the culture to really have a hard opinion on it. But my intuition tells me, yeah, it's probably ridiculous and stupid.
What do you mean with how women are being treated here?
So I've met women who've come from France and Europe, and they say like they can't wear like short skirts in public because like men will lift up their skirt and sexually harass them. The catcalling is extreme. women get catcalled here. Like, I'll see construction workers saying, hey, looking good, stuff like that. But like, I've heard stories in Europe where like women will get what's very close to like rape threats, where like, hey, I'd fuck that pussy all night, babe. Like, so I don't know. Things might be so extreme in France where it's such a big social problem and women are genuinely in danger where it might make sense. I'm not really completely familiar with the cultural issues there, but again, my intuition from the culture that I know in Canada, banning catcalling would be ridiculous.
Yeah, I made a pretty similar point, and people, of course, screenshotted it and told everyone, I want women to be treated like objects. I want women to be called. And I said that I said, I mean, when we get down to it and somebody calls after you, hey, I want to suck your tits. I mean, even if it's the derogatory, at the end of the day, as if you boil it down, he said that because some part of his brain was physically attracted to you. And if you put it that way, even though it might be even frightening, it's not even an insult. It's just maybe derogatory subjectively for the person receiving that mark. But I am in accordance with you that speech and even that there is a threshold, especially when it comes to a culture, that might lead to it making sense to prohibit certain acts that lead to something that might even be physical, like lifting skirts, like rape. Like you said before, hate speech is hate speech when it leads to or should lead to physical harm to certain groups. And at that point, it makes sense to ban anything else, even derogatory terms.
Like, by the way,
Yeah.
this is especially if you look at conservative pundits in the US, they'll gaslight you into thinking hate speech is offensive speech. So when I hear people,
yeah, definitely.
when I hear people complaining about like catcalling laws in France, I haven't looked up what the law actually says about catcalling. So it might have something to do specifically with like rape threats. I'm not sure. So I wouldn't take some of this just at face value that, oh, France is banning trying to pick up women. Like, oh, hey, beautiful, can I get your number? Like, oh, that's catcalling. That's illegal. I don't know if I wouldn't just take that at face value if somebody is research for yourself and see what the law actually says. Because conservatives, especially in the United States, a lot of them are anti-Semitic, hate black people, hate Asians, hate every culture, and they try to gaslight people into thinking hate speech is just offensive speech so that so that they can keep having their hate speech protected under free speech laws in the U.S. But you talked about how there's kind of a murky area between offensive speech and hate speech. I don't think that's the case, especially if we define hate speech as speech that would likely lead to violence or a disturbance of the peace. So,
But if you're like, I'm just gonna make a crass example here. If you're a Twitch streamer, I'm playing devil's advocate now because I'm for more offensive speech online, but whatever.
Sure.
If you're a Twitch streamer and you react to someone's content and you constantly call them a cognitive impaired slut that is a waste of space, and all your viewers start like also spamming them and maybe even harassing them on the streets, do you take any kind of responsibility when it comes to physical acts when you before had all these slurs coming from your side to that streamer?
Slurs like dumbass, cunt, bitch, stupid idiot. No, I wouldn't assume that would lead to violence. There's nothing about that would suggest there needs to be some sort of physical intervention.
So I'm not
because those are just merely
TikTok.
like those are just merely insults. Insults, I wouldn't assume would reasonably be expected to lead to somebody attacking somebody. If you are making up a story about somebody being a pedophile, that or a rapist, that would, likely lead to somebody, enacting vigilantism or like getting some sort of justice.
Um, I'm not very well liked on TikTok in Germany. I get recognized a lot, and people have made gruesome videos about me, actively telling the world I harm veganism and I'm a terrible person and I scream at children, whatever. You know the drill. So people do attack me, and it has happened physically. Like I've been hit. We've been hit with burgers. We've been hit with chicken nuggets. My things have been stolen and crashed. My body has been touched. I've been sexually harassed, all because people recognize me, and not in a positive way, obviously. So, I mean, there must be some kind of threshold of things that lead to this. I don't think that the juvenile people did this because they saw such positive videos about me. So is it only, so where does that come from then?
Well, there's like bullying does exist. There is like an amount of disrespect that you can give to somebody that if enough people have that general sense of disrespect or hate towards you, you're probably going to get somebody who will maybe act upon it in some sort of way. But again, like when we're talking about codifying things into law, it has to be what would reasonably be expected to lead to violence or a disruption of the peace. So,
So you wouldn't make bullying illegal.
it depends. Like, it depends on the context. It depends on the situation. Like bullying in the workplace should probably be illegal. Like you do have workers' rights and protections under the law in a workplace. When it comes to just general harassment, like online, like if somebody's calling you stupid or like a dumb bitch or a worthless cunt, again, from a legal perspective, and I mean, just from an intuitive perspective, you wouldn't expect that just those words simply to lead to a disruption of the peace or violence. You can end up having a situation like what you're experiencing where there's like a hate mob after you, where there's so many people who dislike you to such a degree that, yeah, you will get bullied and harassed in the street, and it does cross the bounds into like, assault or battery. But when you're trying to prosecute like any individual, like is any one person responsible for that? Can you arrest or charge any one person for making a video about you, calling you an idiot, a dumb bitch, a cunt? Probably not. What you could maybe argue is that some of what's being said about you is libel. So you're like, I don't know if you've been called a Holocaust denier before or an anti-Semite. Some of that stuff could maybe, cross the boundary into libel. But yeah, when you're just talking about simple insults and harassment, I don't think that could ever be considered crossing the bounds into libel or hate speech or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. And also in Germany, when people say that I'm a Holocaust denier or even I'm a Nazi, I can actually sue them for that. So that's fair enough. So once they make up claims about things that I've actually should have been doing illegal, because it's illegal, obviously, I can sue them for spreading this defamation. But yeah, calling me bitch, I could theoretically in Germany screenshot every single one, every single person who calls me bitch in the comment section and get them sued. But
That's bizarre.
yeah, it's bizarre. But usually the police says, due to time restriction, this doesn't seem like the biggest thing. Like if it's just some user XYZ, they don't care. But if it's like a big streamer, like if you were in Germany with me and you called me cunt, or you would even if you called my idea stupid. The idea of veganism, if you call that stupid, I think I can sue you for that, because you cannot call an idea stupid. There are really weird laws in Germany, and you
Europe,
see, I have a big problem here. Yeah.
Europe in
Wait.
general is
Mhm.
extremely, extremely cucked.
Yeah.
That sort of concept like doesn't exist here. Like Europeans, and that includes people in like the UK, they're extremely sensitive. They're absolute fucking babies, and yeah, there's a lot of I don't know if free speech is even codified into law in Germany. I know it's not in the UK. I know it's not in a lot of European countries, and there's a lot of public decency laws that just don't make any fucking sense. And like, I mean, it makes sense why so many European countries have like banned guns and shit. Everyone's a massive fucking pussy. Like they
I'm
can't
not sure
handle
where I'm on the
criticism.
gun thing though. But that's, I think, for another day. But yeah, everyone's a massive pussy. And once you say that, you actually get sued from all those massive pussies. It's terrible. And people are so fucking bad that
I'd get a
they will
life
actually do.
sentence if I lived there.
I recently watched your debate on Destiny, and I always think it's so refreshing watching non-German podcasts, because people constantly call each other names, and
Yeah.
it's I don't know why, but it's beautiful to my ears.
Yeah.
And nobody's whining about that. They're not like, "Oh my God, you insulted me, you called me a name." They just fire back and keep on with the
Yeah.
conversation. That's how it should be. Stand your fucking ground and keep on going. If you have no better argument than to be offended, then you obviously don't have one. But
Yeah.
back on track, we wanted to talk about prohibiting, denying the Holocaust,
Yeah,
especially.
sure.
So my proposition, that's why we actually wanted to start the debate, was I don't think that denying anything or fact that we learned in history class or agree upon as a society should be illegal. I don't think that criticizing if Corona existed or not should be illegal. I don't think that denying the Holocaust should be illegal. But I would like to make the disclaimer right here. Yes, I do believe in Corona. Yes, I do believe in the Holocaust and the numbers that we are taught in school. And I think that everybody who does deny the Holocaust as a severe tragedy should not only be morally judged and shamed for that and taught better. But I don't think that they should be imprisoned, because we have people in Germany sitting in prison for denying the Holocaust, or for just denying they say, oh, it wasn't 11 million Jews, it was just 2 million. Like, terrible enough, don't get me wrong. But once you say that publicly, yeah, we have people in Germany sitting in prison for that. I don't think that should be the case. What's your opinion on that?
I think they should be in jail.
Why?
The reason is every time you talk to a Holocaust denier or a revisionist, where most of the revisionists will revise it to as little as a few hundred to usually as much as like maybe around 200,000. I've rarely seen a revisionist say, well, it wasn't 6 million Jews, it was like 5.4 million. That never happens. But the reason why Holocaust denial or revisionism does constitute hate speech, and why it should be banned and it should be prosecuted, either with a fine or imprisonment, is because Holocaust denial or revisionism comes along with other conspiracy theories about Jews. They lied about it so that they could get sympathy and rule the world and control you. It always comes along with these other conspiracy theories, and it's never about, oh, well, this is just my reading of the historical facts, and this is how I've come to this understanding. It always comes alongside, well, someone lied about it, there was some sort of cover-up, and it was for nefarious purposes, and it leads to this idea that Jews are evil, and they lied about the Holocaust so that they could get Israel or get sympathy or get power on the world stage. So that's fundamentally why I think Holocaust denialism should be illegal and should be banned. It's
Okay.
possible that there are some other historical events that, if you deny, could also be constituted as hate speech in that same sort of way, like the Armenian genocide, maybe. And I'd be in favor of, making that illegal too, if there were these conspiratorial beliefs around that denialism. And with regards to like denying vaccines or the coronavirus, for me, it's more of a threshold thing. I don't think we've crossed a threshold where that denialism is so dangerous that it could lead to enough people dying where it would make sense to make it illegal. But there was a time not too long ago when people were held at gunpoint who denied vaccines. During smallpox outbreaks in the United States, the police would go from town to town and literally hold people at gunpoint. And vaccines weren't the same back then like they were today. You'd actually have to cut somebody open in the arm and jam pustules of cowpox into their arm and sew it up in order to vaccinate people. So if there was a virus or a disease that was massively dangerous, and you're talking about potentially like hundreds of millions of people dying, and you have deniers out there who are being taken seriously, I would make that illegal to deny. So yeah, I think for the public interest, when you're talking about something that could lead to like an unconscionable amount of deaths, it should be illegal to deny, things like vaccine technology.
Okay, I see the point on that. Yeah, I will give you. I agree with the vaccine thing. When there's a threshold that a disease is really so dangerous and the evidence is really clear, then yes. However, it is always difficult to say when the evidence is clear. I don't know.
Not really. I mean, we have the data for the coronavirus. I
I'm
think
not
you
talking
were.
about Corona, but
Yeah, I know.
just in a bad faith utopian or rather dystopian scenario, and somebody who is generally critical of the system oppressing them, like how much could we say is enough evidence? What do they have to hear in order to make a good decision to simply run along with the vaccine system?
Well, I mean, this is simple data. We have data from the coronavirus vaccines, the mRNA vaccines. I think you're 8 times more likely to die of coronavirus if you're non-vaccinated. So, this is just simple data. If there was a highly deadly disease like smallpox going around, we'd have the data to show, these vaccines work. You're 100 times less likely to die. You're, 10 times less likely to spread the disease. If somebody's going to deny that, and again, if these ideas are spreading, which could lead to, an unconscionable amount of deaths, like say 100 million, I think that should be illegal. I don't I don't think there's really this fear of, okay, well, this could lead to genuine, real criticism being silenced. Usually when it comes to things like vaccines, it's pretty easy to see, whether or not they work, whether or not it's actually leading to a reduction in deaths.
Yeah, what do you do with people who don't believe in data? Because we have a lot of people, especially coming from conservative sides, who, I mean, I'm a doctor. I do believe in data. I do trust the big data. However, it depends on, of course, what kind of data you choose. But in general, like there's good study. What's the term? Quality. I trust the study. But there are people who just generally go about and say, science. So you believe in science. And
Yeah.
they kind of said, you criticize people for believing in God the way they criticize me for believing in science. What do you do with these people?
Well, again, if somebody like the whole idea around this is, having an interest in the public good and public safety. If somebody is spreading an idea around that could lead to many, 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 many deaths,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, imprison them. Give them a hefty enough fine that shuts them up.
Okay.
I don't think we've crossed that threshold with vaccines yet, because there is an issue. There is a fear among doctors that, okay, if we push too hard with these vaccine policies and we make it illegal to have vaccines outright, that could lead to public backlash that makes it harder for vaccine adoption. Because especially Americans, they really value their freedom to like a stupid extent to where it even personally harms them. Like with
Mm,
vaccines. Oh, everybody should have a right. Somebody should have a right to infect me and kill me with a deadly virus.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of a balancing act where there's certainly a threshold that's crossed where, okay, if everybody starts believing vaccines are harmful and should never be used, and there's a deadly virus going around, obviously forcing people at gunpoint to take a vaccine is a good thing. If maybe 10-20% of the population doesn't believe that and you force vaccines, maybe that will cause 30 to 40% of the population to be hesitant about vaccines. So there's a little bit of a balancing act there. But I think when it comes to enforcement of some of these laws around hate speech or denial of scientific or historical facts, there's this worry that there's going to be a slippery slope into, oh, well, me calling you stupid will be illegal. Me
Mm,
making a little, funny racist joke will be illegal. I've never seen that. If we just define hate speech as speech that would, be assumed to lead to violence or a disruption of the peace, I don't see how you could ever have that slippery slope. And I certainly haven't seen that happen in Canada. And by the way, like, we don't have unfettered free speech anywhere. There, you can be jailed for disruption of the peace. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. You can't make up lies about somebody, calling them a rapist or a pedophile. So you never hear conservatives, talk about, oh, well, if you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, then you're not going to be able to yell yay on a roller coaster, right? I don't see that slippery slope fallacy being used any other time we restrict free speech, but it's only when we're talking about, like hate speech.
yeah, in German, we call these kind of arguments, once we can't yell fire, then we won't be able to call someone who is of black skin, and that will also be infringed upon. We call that dam break argument, because the dam breaks and then everything is illegal.
Right.
I was asking you about what we do about people who simply deny science, or I'm not going to put the quotation marks here, because in the for me, a symmetry breaker that you mentioned before was the intention that goes along with denying the Holocaust is inventing these lies or the whole story about, for example, Jews having like a bigger idea and just wanting sympathy. Because the people who deny science, they they are scared for their own life and safety, but not with the intention of harming. So I was wondering if you were making a distinction here, or if you would still jail them even though they don't have like the intention of hurting a lot of people, of discriminating against the crowd. But it seems that you are valuing the consequence of their words and the propaganda they spread that way more. So let's imagine, and I know that I don't have experience with Holocaust deniers, but let's imagine theoretically somebody were to simply deny the fact that the Holocaust happened, and they are very sympathetical towards Jews, but they simply don't believe that for whatever weird reason in this hypothetical. Um, you would still jail them because you believe that this is dangerous propaganda for people who spread terrible rumors about these marginalized groups. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I don't really care too much about intent. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think anybody who gets drunk and then drives has the intent of killing anybody. What we really care about is the potential harm and the actual harm that occurs when the crime's committed. So you could maybe say it's a mitigating factor if somebody is denying the Holocaust or spreading some other form of hate speech that they didn't intend for it to be hateful, but there's a clear consequence to saying these things. There's a clear potential for harm. So you could maybe argue it's a mitigating factor, but I would still say it should be illegal just because you didn't intend for it to be hateful. If it is hateful, then you should still be prosecuted for it.
Mm-hmm. In our last conversation, and I might be mixing things up here, we talked about intent when it comes to killing and wild animal suffering when it comes to intent. So why value the intent when it comes to our daily lives and killing animals, but not in the situation because the drunk person puts themselves in the situation where the risk is higher, or why?
Yeah, so I never said intent doesn't matter. Intent certainly matters, but again, like if we're going to use the animal agriculture example, so what's the difference between paying for a steak so that a cow gets murdered and I don't know, accidentally stepping on a frog? There's accidents that are going to occur where you can't blame someone. So I don't know, walking down the street, a tiny little frog jumps in my path and I step on it. That's not something where you could reasonably blame me for the outcome. I wasn't breaking any laws. I wasn't being negligent to a point where you could consider that criminal. But let's say I was drunk in public or doing something stupid like doing cartwheels in a crowded area, and I ended up jumping on a 5-year-old kid and breaking his ribs or killing him or something. That's something where it's criminally negligent, where the actions you're doing could reasonably be assumed to actually result in harm, and you weren't being a responsible person, and you can be blamed for the circumstances, where if you had just chosen to walk, you wouldn't have harmed that like 5-year-old kid. And then you go a step further where you're just deliberately violating somebody's rights knowingly and willingly, like, you know, slitting a cow's throat open. So
Okay.
so yeah, when it comes to like, I have one family member that I know of that's a Holocaust denier. The guy's a fucking retard. He, like, I've talked to him about this a little bit at a Christmas party, and yeah, whenever that gets brought up, it's pretty freaking awkward. But I get the sense that he's just an idiot. He doesn't hate Jews. I've never heard him like say anything about how, you know, Jews are evil and everything. Like he's probably just stupid and probably just ended up believing in some dumb propaganda. And like I can understand, you know, that, you know, 10 million people dying in the Holocaust, like that's kind of hard to imagine that an entire society could, you know, support just the mass killing of people. So you will run into Holocaust deniers that don't intend for it to be hateful, aren't trying to promote hate speech and genuinely think they uncovered some sort of mystery. But again, the speech itself is still harmful, and it's not something that you want to propagate because we know for a fact it leads to violence and it leads to these conspiratorial beliefs against Jews that actually has a real world impact on them, where you have people walking into synagogues and committing mass murder.
Yeah, I think you convinced me that the threshold for denying things like the Holocaust or very dangerous diseases or the efficiency of vaccines warrant to prohibit them. So I did never see it as the consequences, and the whole lie package that usually does come along with this, like the whole conspiracy theory about these marginalized groups, then. So yeah, I understand that now.
Yeah,
And
and
I
I mean,
would
think about it this way. There's a lot of major historical events like January 6th, the January 6th insurrection in the United States, where Trump convinced a huge group of his followers to rush the Capitol and try to interfere with the transfer of power.
it was kind of funny though.
It was funny. There was a lot of memes,
Yeah.
but it's also dangerous. Like, just imagine if Trump had said, Jews are behind the whole election conspiracy. Thing like these sorts of conspiratorial claims against certain groups of people are very, very dangerous. If Trump had said Jews are behind the whole thing, all of those people who, came to the Capitol building and rushed the Capitol, they could have perpetrated some sort of hate crime against Jews or particular Jewish individuals. They might have gone to Goldman Sachs or, some of these big banks and, rushed some Jewish institution. So I think a lot of people underestimate humanity's ability to be ideologically possessed and just be hateful and do crazy fucking things. And I think a lot of people just don't respect that fact. And, they have a noble goal of ensuring that everybody has a right to free speech and freedom of expression, but they kind of forget to realize just how dangerous people are and how dangerous bad ideas are.
Yeah, that's why before I asked if somebody does have a massive following and keeps on bullying someone online. That's exactly the point that you were trying to make. I mean, even if I don't like incite to commit a crime, if I don't tell my community to do something against that, you just said they are very dangerous. So I don't think that bullying one-on-one or calling someone a slur in a debate should be illegal, but continuously making cruel, terrible slur videos about someone, they're very derogatorily. I think there has to be a threshold where it's just dangerous, that the kind of hate wave leads to exactly what you just said, people rushing the Capitol, even if there wasn't like a clear statement from that influencer saying that you should do that. I don't know where the threshold should be, but I guess I would feel it. There needs to be some kind of end to that, or at least that the person who is being bullied has the right to say, hey, I'm getting these threats. There has to be something done about that.
Yeah. So I know there's some really toxic people online, like Leafy is here. I don't know if you've ever heard about him. There are like very toxic communities where the person with the platform will encourage things like telling people to kill themselves, or encouraging bullying and harassment to somebody. Like I've seen Leafy's here go after people who are like actually mentally disabled and have like autism, make fun of them, and then their whole community goes after them and tells them, kill yourself, you don't deserve to live. I don't know if anything has like crossed a threshold where people actually start finding these people in real life and harassing them. But I don't know if there's any case law around this where if you knowingly have a community that is very toxic and hateful, and you're pushing them towards harassing somebody, and they're known for actually going out in public and harassing these people. I don't know if there's any case law around like having some sort of gag order where, okay, you can't talk about this person anymore because your community is going to act in this sort of way. I'm not sure. So I'm sure there would be a threshold where if somebody is harassing somebody in some sort of way and they know they have a very toxic community that will react in a particular way. I'm sure there is a threshold where I'd say, yeah, you should be able to like put some sort of gag order on them.
Yeah, me too. I think there should be a threshold, but it should be very high because I don't want to run or live in a society where I'm not allowed to make more than one reaction video of some kind of influencer who enslaves animals and publicly calling them an animal enslaver. I think these people should be shamed. Obviously, I do. Since we're vegan, we don't want them to get away with that publicly. So yeah,
Yeah,
there needs, but I
I
don't know where I would. It's very difficult to say where the threshold would be there.
I don't know if it's even technically a threshold. I think there would have to be a number of factors put together where you've like fostered a community that encourages going to somebody's house and harassing them and like throwing bricks through their window. This is a consequence of something you're going to say. Like, there would probably have to be a few factors. I don't know really how to codify something like that into law. But what I do know for sure is I definitely think hate speech should be regulated. And certain types of misinformation, like denying the Holocaust, should be regulated. And there might be a time where denial of vaccines should probably be regulated. There's at least a threshold there.
So yeah, I'd like to sum up. We did the defamation and lies should be illegal. I think we agree upon that.
Yeah, it's already illegal.
Yeah, but it should stay that way in our ideal world. It's yeah. I guess it depends on where we are. Hate speech and denying the Holocaust should be, well, the first of all, of course, regulated and said what hate speech is. And I think like facts like the Holocaust and other things that lead to a lot of harm should be denied, should be illegal. And there, I think we agreed that there should be a threshold when it comes to encouraging online bullying. And one more thing that I think shouldn't count as free speech is inciting to committing crimes.
Yeah.
Like, I think I shouldn't be able to go online and say, stab Richard or burn a slaughterhouse. Even though I am in favor of burning slaughterhouses, I don't think that I should be online to tell someone to do this on XYZ date. What do you think about dick pics? Should they be illegal? Is that free speech to send a dick pic?
To send one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless it's to a minor. Yeah.
Yeah. It should be legal, but unless it's to a minor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have the same opinion. And once again, I publicly voiced that on Discord and I stand by that opinion because I think it's mostly derogatory. It's mostly not in the sense of, I want to give you a compliment. Here's my irrigated dick to tell you, have a wonderful, blessed day because I'm thinking of you. I get that. I'm not that naive, but I wouldn't make it illegal because the only thing that would, why it should be illegal, like it is illegal in Germany. It is. You can screenshot it and send it to the police and that person gets fined. But the only reason it's illegal is because we feel, disgusted by it, maybe even frightened, maybe even...
It's illegal in Germany, really?
Pardon?
It's illegal in Germany to send like an unsolicited dick pic?
There are whole lawyer parties simply concentrating on this kind of sexual harassment online. You can even go so far, you get a message, send me pics of your feet, I will send you money. You can actually sue people for that. And I think it's... What?
That's bizarre. I've actually had a few trolls like tell me you're an idiot, kill yourself, shit like that, and I send them like pictures of my asshole for my OnlyFans.
Oh wow, they shouldn't get that for free.
Well, I don't think they appreciate it.
Well, depends on your taste, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't see a reason why dick pics should be illegal. I don't think they lead to violence. I don't think they lead to crime. No. And when I voiced that, I had huge YouTubers making like, she's not a feminist, she's pro catcalling, like bad faith as fuck. And she's pro dick pics. I'm like, I'm not saying that it's like mostly polite. I'm not saying that it's good, but it's just as disgusting for me, maybe even a bit less disgusting than like getting a picture of a schnitzel or a steak People send that to me 10 times a day.
Yeah.
And I think it's more disgusting than having someone's dick on my phone. They do it out of the same ill intention that usually dick pics are sent because they want to be derogatory, because they want it to be a slur, because they want me to be offended and feel weak and maybe even frightened and tell them how dominant. This it's exactly the same reason. They just the sexual part of it is out of the picture. But how is a sexual offense, like in the sense of a digital message, worse than any other offense? Why would we make one illegal and the other not? So I don't see.
Well, what's bizarre too is like people can get a dick pic unsolicited and appreciate it. It's kind of like if I don't know, like I'm sure there's girls where if I sent them a dick pic, they'd be like, "Oh, sweet, Vegan Gain sent me a dick pic," and they don't even know me. And there's other people who would be offended by it. Like when you're making a crime, when you're making something a crime, that entirely depends on whether or not you personally offend somebody. It's really weird because like anything could be offensive. Somebody sending you a steak is offensive to you. Like people have sent me music that I fucking hated. Like because somebody sent me music that I didn't like, should I be able to like? I don't see a difference, you know.
Yeah.
If the crime entirely, yeah, like if the crime entirely depends on whether or not somebody liked or disliked it, I just see that as a fundamental like violation of human rights and values.
I see it nearly like you, but I think the reasoning is a bit off. I made the same reasoning too, but I think it's for me, it's just like 1%. Like I said, I think most dick pics that are sent, they are not well-intentioned. They are not meant as a compliment. I do get that. People try to frame me as if I didn't. And I do believe that most women feel shit about that. They feel disgusted by it. Yes, there might be some people with kinks who actually think, that's an attractive penis. Might wank one off later on to this picture. Thank you so much. But I think it's the exception and not the rule. So but that's still not the reasoning. Even if everybody felt offended by that, like most people feel offended by cunt, maybe even everyone. If I call them cunt straight to their face, most people will. Even I don't have to make the reasoning that maybe somebody likes, like somebody might be very submissive and like you to call them a cunt, but that isn't the reasoning why we wouldn't prohibit you calling them a cunt. But because you're free speech and you're the way that you express yourself, and I think your body is a part of how you express yourself, shouldn't be prohibited. And I don't think that, yeah, there's a significant difference between sending a picture of your dick and a picture of your schnitzel. That's not because they might like it.
I just don't see how it leads to any sort of objective harm. Like again, somebody could appreciate it. Somebody could just not care. Somebody could be offended. Somebody might be really offended. There's no objective harm. So if you're going to ban sending like dick pics or offensive messages just purely on the basis of, well, it offends a lot of people, I just see that as a violation of human rights.
Yeah, so that's the reason why I would make it illegal, because if something is just offensive, that's not enough reason to make it illegal. Like I said, like being like sending the word cunt. But not because somebody might like it. That's not the reasoning that I would bring forward here to defend.
Well, it's not that somebody might like it. It's just that there's no objective harm that you've established.
To play devil's advocate, they would say, since most women are harmed by it, or people who get it, they are traumatized by it, and it creates more harm than opportunity for the dick pic sender. They want to prohibit it, but I don't see how I don't see it. I don't see it. And I think that sending a schnitzel creates more harm too. Well,
it absolutely creates more harm, because in order to get the picture, you have to kill an animal.
Yeah, that's why I say it's even worse for me than the dick. But yeah, that's not a good reason to prohibit something simply because many people are offended by it. I think on the topic of dick pics, we agree too. what's your opinion on burning flags and the Quran or pissing on the Bible? Should that be illegal or illegal?
No, it should absolutely be allowed. Again, I don't see how that leads to any sort of objective harm. I don't see how that could even be considered to constitute hate speech, and it should be protected under freedom of expression.
I don't think that's consistent with something that you said before. If we shouldn't talk shit about one group of people and encourage harm against them, doesn't like pissing on the Bible encourage harm against Christians? Isn't that, or is it just when I say the Bible is a book that the Christians wrote to dominate the world and kill all, I don't know, blonde people, whatever, that would be a lie additionally, and that would probably be not be in your favor. But when people burn a book, they don't just burn a book. I could come with the same reason that you came before. It usually goes with a package of ideals against a certain group.
Yeah, so you can burn a flag and you could have a message behind it like, I don't know, death to America, like all Americans should die. You could have a message like that. Same like if you burnt an Israeli flag. I think that the message would be far more clear that you want to exterminate like all Jews from Israel. I guess it would depend on the context and what the actual message is. But again, like blanketly banning flag burning or burning of the Quran or the Bible, you could just say you don't stand for some of the values that the flag holds. So if I were to, I don't know, burn the Saudi Arabian flag, if I or burn the Quran, I like if I were to do that personally, I wouldn't be making a statement that I think like all Muslims should die. Like if I were to do that personally, I would be making the message that I don't respect the values that are held by like the Saudi government or the values that are held in the Quran. So I don't think you can just outright ban flag burning without again violating freedom of expression.
Yeah, I think it should be allowed. In Germany, it isn't. You cannot burn flags. You cannot piss on the Bible or the Quran.
Really? Wow, that's gay.
Yeah, even if you like make memes about using one of these holy books as your toilet paper, you can get sued for that and have a fine for that.
I am never going to go to Germany. I would get a life sentence.
You would be invited though, but yeah, it's I think it's very annoying, and it fringes on so much of stuff that I want to say in debates, and it really restricts my personal clarity in debates. It's fucking annoying. Yeah, something I forgot, I think this is the last point that for me also falls under this whole umbrella discussion and hate speech and free speech. What do you think about being naked in public?
Yeah, so I think we have a very weird sex negative society. So there are practical reasons for why you might want to restrict public nudity. So sanitation, if somebody puts their dirty ass on a park bench, their butt germs might go over the bench. You are likely to, say, rub up against somebody in public by accident, and if you don't have any clothing protecting your genitals or your butthole, again, you could spread germs. Depending on what you do while you're naked, you could consider certain acts to be inherently sexual in nature. So you probably don't want to perform sex acts in front of children. I think if you are performing sex acts in front of adults, even then that could be seen as potentially harmful if they don't consent. to viewing it. So, there are practical reasons against public nudity, but if somebody is like, I don't know, standing naked at their hotel window and people happen to see it, but they're not doing anything overtly sexual, like they're not jerking off or putting something up their ass or pussy or anything, I I can't really make an argument against it. Like the the human body isn't inherently sexual. So I don't see anything wrong with public nudity blanketly, but there are certain situations where I think it should be restricted, like, again, for the interest of sanitation, for the interest of protecting certain vulnerable people from witnessing sex acts that might harm them.
Yeah, I'm in alignment when it comes to public nudity, and the hygiene aspect. I think on public transportation, it would have to be like in a sauna that you have to wear something on your lower half
Yeah.
so that you don't rub against someone, so that you don't leave like marks when it's a sweaty day and I don't know, all your genital is draining. I don't know. And probably even in grocery stores, in clothing shops, general maybe shopping, I think I would say that you have to wear something on your lower half. But like in a public street, I think you should be allowed to be naked, however often and much you wish. I don't understand. So I'm playing devil's advocate here. Don't get me wrong. Disclaimer, I'm not for sex in front of children. I think it's a difficult and big discussion. What constitutes as sex already? Like, is wild kissing sex? Is that bad for children if they see someone harming, like kissing each other? Why is sex in front of children bad? I haven't read up on it. I'm not informed enough to have a well-formed opinion on that. But you made a point saying for adults. So we're just going to talk about the adult part here. From my side, when someone's not consenting to viewing a sex act happening in public, why is the consent of viewing something important when it comes to a sex act, but not for you when it comes to an unsolicited dick pic?
I don't know. Yeah, can't really think of a particular reason. Like at least when you're sending a dick pic, like any sort of communication media, you have your own tools to censor things. So you can actually you can have parental blocks on your phone. You can block people who send you messages you don't like. If it's something in public where somebody's right there and you might not necessarily be able to get away from them, that might be an aspect of why I have a bit of an issue with, committing a sex act in public, like even if it's in front of adults. So in public, somebody might be following you. And following somebody isn't necessarily illegal, like just walking and like deliberately trying to walk in front of you. So there are circumstances where somebody could maybe be, really offended by something or traumatized by something that they don't want to see, but they can't get away from it. But whereas if like you send a dick pic on a phone or something through Instagram, they can just block you. They have the tools, but in public, you can't necessarily block somebody.
Yeah, I think doesn't work from a consistency point because you choose to go out in public just as much as you choose to open your Instagram messages that are actually that
Well, you have to
double-click
go out,
on when you
like,
don't know that person.
you have to go out in public life. Like, you have to go to work. You have to, do a job. You have to get food. Like, I guess you can use
but
Instacart.
wouldn't you say nowadays you also have to for many jobs? At least it's alleviating. Like I could go as far as saying no, you don't have to. You can work from home just as much as you say yeah, you don't have to use social media. You could work a job that doesn't require social media. but that's not the reality for many people.
Well, the
So
thing is, though, you have tools to block things you don't like.
we don't on Instagram.
Yeah, you do. You can block certain individuals.
I can block certain individuals, but the harm is already done. So if you say you would say it's bad because they could be traumatized or massively offended, which is weird hearing from your mouth as a reason to prohibit something, then they would also be probably, you could make that argument, offended or perhaps traumatized by receiving a dick or even a schnitzel pic. So I don't see like a symmetry breaker here, why you would allow one and not the other. I think
Well,
both should be.
well, again, on the social media example, you have more tools where, okay, you might end up seeing it incidentally, but you can block them. You can actually choose who you can receive messages from. So it can only be from friends or associates. You can choose not to open messages entirely if you don't know who they're from. I think there's also a feature on Instagram where photos can be blurred before you like accept to see them. So there are platforms that do that. But like again, when it's out in public, you know, you don't have those tools to block certain people.
Well, you can walk away if you don't
Yeah, you
consent
can.
to viewing it.
You can walk away, but they can also follow you and walk towards you. I like again the public nudity thing's weird. There are states where public nudity is, at least in certain areas like parks, is fine. You can do that. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Other than the hygiene standpoint, I don't have a good argument against public nudity.
Yeah, no, we've already, I think, agreed upon that point.
Yeah.
We're at the sex part now, and I don't see it as a reality or even like a wild possibility for people who are currently having sex. They see you being offended by it, and then they choose to, I don't know, have sex while walking towards you to make sure you see it, even though you're not consenting to it. I don't see that happening. And in a world where that could happen, you could still just go home until they stop.
Yeah, like I mean, you could consider it icky, but I mean, there's plenty of vegan activists who, you know, hold signs that people are consider icky of like
Yeah,
animal abuse.
yeah.
So,
And we walk behind those people so that they see it.
like personally, I'm a very sex positive person. Aside from hygiene concerns, I can't really think of very good reasons for why it should be wrong to be nude or do sex acts in public. Aside from like
Yeah, the
maybe
children, we already
harming
had that, I guess,
children.
but I don't know
Yeah.
about the children's harm when it comes to, I honestly don't know any studies on if it really harms children. I'm not saying that it should be done because, like
Yeah.
I said, this I have no fucking
I think
idea.
I think when it comes to kids, you should have a precautionary principle. You know, there is definitely research showing that children are harmed when they're victims of sexual abuse. I don't know if they're harmed when they view sexual content, but knowing that they are harmed when they're victims of sexual abuse, so like when they're touched inappropriately and shit like that, that absolutely does harm them. So
Yeah, yeah.
we could maybe have a precautious principle that, you know, it could likely harm minors. There is also grooming concerns where if adults are having like doing sex acts in front of children, it might normalize and it might make them more prone to being groomed and victimized. So, you know, for those sorts of reasons, should definitely have a precautionary principle.
Yeah, I see it the same. I think those were all the topics under the realm of free speech that I wanted to talk to you about. And I think you cleared up my opinion on Holocaust denying, so thanks for that.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I guess I hope the audience kind of got something out of this discussion, and hopefully it changed some people's opinions or got them to think about things like hate speech and Holocaust denial. But thanks for coming on. And for those of you who don't know Rafaela, she has both a English and German vegan activist channel here on YouTube, and she's also on TikTok. So why don't you just shout your channels out?
Yeah, my German handles are Die Militante Veganerin on all social media platforms, and in English, I'm called The Militant Vegan on all social media platforms. And I also have an OnlyFans link that you find in my YouTube in German and in English. So thank you so much for having me on. And people, please don't be so fucking offended. Otherwise, your country will be like Germany, where you can't call people assholes anymore.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.